Hey, my name is Scottie, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you my technique to sketch anything you see, whether from a photo or from life. And it's a really easy to follow process, which is great for beginners. And here's a summary of my observational sketching technique. I use dots to measure, so that's a really important part of my process. Use dots to measure to help you construct your sketch. And I start sketching the big shapes first, and then I go back down into the detail. And finally, a very important part of the technique is that it's very loose and impressionistic. So it's not supposed to be a realistic sketch. It's very fast and loose and can be a lot of fun. So we'll start with the boat, and the first thing I do is look at the main shapes. I think it's the bottom boat and the sail, and we'll leave the person and the oar till the end. So let's start on our page with 2 dots just to set the width. And it can be any width you like, just the rest of the sketch needs to be in proportion to whatever width you chose. So I'm going to make mine this wide. We're just going to focus on the outline. So that's the big shape here. We're not going to do all the little details within the boat. So I'll start with this line joining the two, but I can see that it bends down. Come across in the middle, but then come down. Simply connect those 2 dots this way. Nice loose line. It can be really wobbly and all crazy. Okay, so I've got the top of the boat. Now I want to draw the bottom. So I'm looking at that distance and I'm comparatively measuring a little point here with a dot. Now I'm looking where that boat comes and cuts into the water. So I'll say it's about there. It's a little bit to the left here. Let's continue this line around. I'm letting the texture of the page make wobbles. And I'm wondering how far that mask goes into the air. So this is where we do some measuring with our fingers. So I'm going to measure on the reference. And if you were doing something from life, you can hold your fingers up and compare the width to the height. But I've got my iPad in front of me, so I'm putting my fingers now on the width of the boat, and I'm turning my hand and comparing it to the height. The width is roughly equal to the height there. Maybe it's a little bit less. We can put our fingers. You can use a ruler if you'd like to be more accurate. But I lock my fingers there from fingernail to fingernail, and I turn. But it's a little bit lower, so I'm going about a finger width lower. That was right in the middle. The mast is actually a little bit to the right. A little bit to the right, put another dot. Now it can be a really wobbly line. See how wobbly that bamboo mast is. I'll do another one. And now the sail. Just from observation, see it comes down a little bit on the top, put a dot, and then the same distance at the bottom. So whatever you do at the top there, do at the bottom. Now the next point of the sail, where does that come to? I've got to use comparative measuring. So it looks like it's about halfway across between these 2 points, but slightly up. That point there almost looks halfway between these 2 points. So I'm comparing all different points. And we go up like that, go down. Whoa. Now it's time to draw the person. His head's a little bit higher than that and to the left. So we'll just draw the outline of the head. Yellow shirt go to, probably about there. So that head width there, go across and back up. Bottom half here, we just draw 2 lines pretty much. Now the oar, right shoulder is a dot here. I'm going to imagine this an imaginary line connecting those 2 dots and just put a dot here and a dot here. Here, across like that. So point there. So well done, you've done all the big shapes. Now we can add in some detail. But I can see that the edge comes down a bit further here. So about a third of that distance between here and here. Add an extra line. Put those in. I'll add a second line there. On the person, let's make sure it looks like a head. Usually an ear helps. So just here in the middle, put a little shape for an ear, and then the hairline going up and down, just to show the water there. There you go, that's our first sketch, the little fishing boat. Now let's move on to the dragonfly. And the dragonfly looks very complex, but I assure you we can still use my technique to break this down into simple shapes. So I'm going to start at the top of my page, 2 dots for the height of the head there. So mine is about less than a centimetre, maybe a third of an inch. So once you've got that, those 2 little dots, let's outline the shape of the head. A little bit at the front too. Whatever size you made that head, we want to make this part of the body in proportion to the head. So with my fingers on the reference, I'll just get the height and then multiply that down across the body. 1, 2. So there are actually 2 head heights here make up the body. 1, 2. And let's draw that down here Now let's draw the third shape. What I'm doing is get that top section from the head to the body down once, and then that little section here, I'm measuring that and then going down the next section. Now we can outline that. It goes up 3 parts of the body. Now I want to find how far my wing goes out. Putting my fingers on the wing and comparing it to the body now, and it just happens to be that length of that bottom part, point there. So let's join that up there and in, and then we turn around and come back flatter here, in there. And now let's do that line first. Now let's move on to the next wing down here underneath this right wing corner here. Just a little bit further than this point here. So straight out, across, and then around to that point. And then around over to the other one. Look at that, it's nice. So now let's work through some of that detail. There's the little hairs sticking out like that. Zigzaggy line. And draw another shape right into the middle, and making them a little bit bigger than they are. Divide them into segments. This seems like such a complex sketch to me, but when you break it down it becomes easier and easier. And let's draw some lines through the wing, just the main lines like that, and then across there I'm adding a second line there. There's these lines that go across. Okay, well I'm really happy with that. That was a more complex one compared to the boat, but we could still use the same process and get a really nice result. Next we're going to do the German post box. So whenever I have a shape that's a box shape, I always start with that closest edge, setting out the height. So I put a dot here and a dot here. Looking at the reference there with those 2 dots with my fingers, and I'm comparing that to the width. And it's about the same, and it's about half the width on the right. So I can get that distance and go back at an angle, slight angle going up, and then for the left side we get that whole height and we measure that like there. Let's continue that angle here and add a dot above this one. We go straight up, but we have that same angle here. Now let's start with the bottom edge. So very loose line here, just up there vertically, and then down, straight down. Imagining the curve through that dot there. A round section here, like that. Let's draw an arc there too. So with my fingers on the reference there, compare it. It looks like the height is about half the mailbox. So, and I put it up there, should be the height. And then curve in. Semicircle on the top. So a rectangle there. Some lines like that, with a seal, a little face, and that's it. And the final subject is the butterfly. We're going to look at the main shape here, which is the wings. And I like how there's a straight edge there at the bottom, so I'm going to use that as a starting point. Put 2 dots on your page, something like that, and then a dot right in between those 2 dots, just to help us later. So that distance there from the back of the wing to the front of the wing, if you turn that, it equals that mid-wing. And what about that distance to the end? Well, I grabbed that end section and I compared it to our width, and it's about the same. Measure that half here and put a dot up there. So hold your pen loosely again and just go for it. There we go. And we can go at the bottom, start the line. I'm leaving a bit of a gap there for the body. Now that's that big section done. Now let's do the body. And approximately I compared the body to the wing, and it was about 1/3. So I put the head there, use that distance to measure the body length. Very amorphous, but just a circle around the head, legs come out, and about a body width over. Let me just go around that. I'm just eyeballing this one because it's not as important. Buds of the plant go out, and there's 2 here going towards the buds. Then the antennae that go across, up, eye. Next thing is I'm going to do this inner wing. There's a bit of a curve on it. Up and down sections. Just roughly. Actually around here is this black one. And there's a few other black pieces. I might just paint over these and then add in white pen on top. Okay, that's the butterfly. Let's get on to watercolor. So I got my round 10 brush. So we'll start with burnt sienna. Still quite light. Because where the light's coming from the top like that, this will be lighter. So we have our red orange on each side. It's much lighter on this side. The next color I'm going to use is yellow ochre. There. Now let's go over to our dragonfly. I'm going to be using ultramarine in this section. Saturated, and then move it down, and as you go down just take out water out of your brush. Use now cadmium yellow. Start at the bottom and just avoid the letter here. Now back over to our boat. Let's use a mix of turquoise, and I'm adding just a little bit of viridian green into it. It's going to start on the side here like that. It is dark, so I'm going to add Payne's grey to it. Let's add on Payne's grey around in the tyre and also to his hair. But leave lots of white. You don't have to go perfectly within your lines. There's all this structure here that was dark as well. I'm leaving white between the colours. Dark dot there for that lock mechanism on the side. Viridian green, and let my brush go thin to thick. Pressing hard, harder, and then softer, lighter. Here on the legs. This will be instead almost of doing all those little shapes in there. So we need to add some shadows and lighting. I like to use Purple Lake for my shadows. So I've put a little bit of Purple Lake in there, but then lots of water into the water like that. The sail. So I'd say just a little bit on the right hand sides, on the sides of the body there, like that. And on this side of the body, that just showing the background a bit. Across there, just a thin shadow, brush width across and down the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just in this section here, see how it's a bit darker there on the reference, a bit reddy there. You can just add these dark spots there like that. Quite red up there. Nice to have some dots here too. Splatters. Just all over the sketch, just add that interest. And keep some going down there. Just those horizontal dots there. I have my Uniball Signo pen, and we're going to add the highlights over these sketches. Considering the light coming from the top left, most of the edges on the top left of objects will have a highlight. So the top of his head here, a line across there, through the water reflection, so some more little horizontal lines there. If you need to, you can have some highlight there and there. This is a nice new pen I just got, so it works quite nicely. On the top left side, because that's the light coming on that side. And along here, just put a little bit on each one. And that's all the highlights. So that's how I use my technique, my process to sketch anything. We have 4 very different objects here. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and you learned something about the technique. If you want the full tutorial, it's quite a long one, with no cuts, has the references you can download and the templates. You can get all that on my Patreon membership, as well as all my library of tutorials there you have access to, plus there's a community where you can post your work and ask me a question. Otherwise, there's another tutorial right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.